We shall move to questions without notice. Are there any questions? I give a call to the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
My question is to the Minister for Housing. Last April at the National Press Club, the Minister said this about first home buyers, I quote, "Many of them have taken on incredibly large mortgages while interest rates were particularly low, and we don't want, nor is it good for the country, for us to see that generation go into negative equity." How many first home buyers have fallen into negative equity since the budget?
Call to the Minister for Housing, the Minister for Homelessness and the Minister for Cities. Member for Durack. Minister has the call.
Thank you so much, Speaker. And the Leader of the Opposition is asking about the house price impacts of the budget. We covered this matter in some detail yesterday, but let me go through it again for those who are a little bit slower off the uptake, Speaker. Speaker, firstly, legislation passed the parliament last week which does two really important things. It delivers a tax cut for every single one of Australia's 13 million workers, and it delivers for the first time a level playing field for our nation's first home buyers. That's going to get 75,000 Australians who are today stuck in renting into the home of their own that they deserve, Speaker. Now, Speaker, house prices in Australia, according to Treasury, will continue to grow over time, but a little bit more slowly than they otherwise would have. I think those opposite surely have availed themselves of the information about the Treasury modelling that suggests a slower rate of growth of about 2 percentage points. Speaker, that ballpark figure is backed up by other major models, including that of the Commonwealth Bank and the Grattan Institute. And, Speaker, I'd say again we had this conversation in the parliament yesterday, but it's pretty clear where the Labor Party stands on this. We support first-home buyers. We support them through the 5% deposit program. We support them through Help to Buy, and we support them by providing for the first time, Speaker, the fair go at winning an auction that they deserve.
I'll give the call to the honourable member for. When the House comes to order, we'll hear from the honourable member for Dunkley.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Tomorrow is the 1st of July. Why is this an important day for those of us who are committed to strengthening Medicare, helping Australians earn more and keep more of what they earn, and delivering real change? Is there anything standing in the way of these efforts?
Call to the Prime Minister.
I thank the member for Dunkley for her fantastic question and for her advocacy for the people of Frankston and her region, keeping them strong. And indeed, tomorrow is a very good day, because tomorrow we will see the delivery of real change, the real change that we are committed to. Tomorrow, as every Australian on award wages will receive a 4.75% increase, and those on the minimum wage an even higher increase than that. The 5th consecutive increase in the minimum wage under this government, something that we have advocated for, unlike those opposite who opposed every single wage rise, and indeed said that lower wages were a deliberate design feature of their economic architecture. But not only do we want people to earn more, we want them to keep more of what they earn. So tomorrow we'll deliver another tax cut for every single taxpayer. The Deputy Liberal Leader has said this week has backed in and said that these tax cuts that passed this week that will flow through in future are egregious. But these tax cuts, of course, were the ones that were legislated last year that the Leader of the Opposition, when Shadow Treasurer, first said they'd oppose, then voted against, then said they'd roll back, and committed to legislate for higher taxes for all 14 million Australians. But in addition to that, tomorrow we have paid parental leave increased to 6 months and paying super on top. Those opposite declared that parents getting paid parental leave were double dippers. Double dippers is what they called them.
Order, the member for Holt.
Now, in addition to that, workers' superannuation will be paid on payday, again increasing the dollars that are in the pockets of Australian workers. And tomorrow we strengthen Medicare even further. making urgent care clinics a permanent part of Medicare. Those opposite called them wasteful spending. Wasteful spending. And tomorrow we expand cheaper medicines further with another 10 cheaper medicines listed on the PBS. So we want Australians to earn more and keep more than what they earn. Wages are up, taxes down, paid parental leave expanded, Medicare made stronger. Helping Australians under pressure right now and preparing for the future. That's our government's agenda, delivering real change, which was our platform we were elected on last year.
The call to the honourable member for Goldstein.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Housing. Labor's correction in house prices means the value of an Australian home could collapse by 10 to 20%, smashing Australia's nest egg. Did the Minister receive or review any advice from Treasury or APRA about how many first home buyers will be pushed into negative equity because of Labor's deliberate correction?
Call to the Minister for Housing, the Minister for Homelessness and the Minister for Cities.
Thanks so much, Speaker. Appreciate that question from the Shadow Treasurer. And again, Speaker, I'm being asked effectively the same question that I was asked just before. Let me come back to a little bit of advice and referral to those opposite. The impact of the budget changes on house prices is actually in the budget documents, and I would really encourage those opposite to have regard to those documents. I'm going to refer to page 5 of the fact sheet on CGT and negative gearing, Speaker, and I'm quoting directly from the budget. Treasury modelling suggests that the reforms will increase the owner-occupier share of housing, resulting in about 75,000 additional owner-occupiers over the next decade. Speaker, I continue. This is equivalent to reversing around 10 years of decline in Australia's home ownership rate. And, Speaker, the document goes on to say the reduction in investor demand is expected to lead to a small and temporary slowing of house price growth, estimated to see prices grow by around 2% less over a couple of years relative to no tax policy change. Speaker, it's there in the budget documents, and I'd encourage those opposite to actually read them.
I'm not sure what you're doing, but resume your seat. Just resume your seat. Resume your seat. Yeah. We don't approach the dispatch box in that manner. No one does that. Order. When the House comes to order, we'll hear from the honourable member for McEwen.
My question is to the Treasurer. What is the Albanese Labor government doing to help Australians with the cost of living and to help people get ahead? How does that compare to other approaches?
Give a call to the Treasurer.
I thank the member for McEwen for his question. I acknowledge his wonderful granddaughters in the gallery today. Ava and Lacey, welcome to the House of Representatives, where your pa makes a really terrific contribution to our team on this side of the House. And you're here on a really important week because tomorrow is a really important day when we deliver more cost of living relief for Australians in every corner of the country, Mr Speaker. We are delivering tax cuts. We are delivering a stronger budget. We're delivering real change in the tax system to help first home buyers. And from tomorrow, we are delivering more help with the cost of living as well, Mr Speaker. From tomorrow, which is the 1st of July, we cut income taxes again. We boost wages again. We extend paid parental leave. We pay super with wages. We extend petrol price relief, and we make the small business instant asset write-off permanent. Earlier today, I was with the Aged Care Minister, the Social Services Minister, the member for Bean at Uniting at Western. Wonderful aged care home there, Mr Speaker, talking to the workers there. A personal care worker from tomorrow gets $59 extra a week because of the award increase. A registered nurse gets $86 a week, an enrolled nurse $67 a week, Mr Speaker. We support these wage rises. We support these tax cuts, unlike those opposite, Mr Speaker. We've made progress on inflation, and we've seen petrol and diesel prices come down substantially. But people are still under pressure, and that's why there is more help on the way from tomorrow, Mr Speaker. This is the cost of living relief that Australians need and deserve, and this Albanese Labor government is providing it, Mr Speaker. We're providing this help at the same time as new numbers show that debt is now $200 billion lower than we inherited from those opposite, and the deficit this year will be smaller as well. So we are delivering for workers, for first home buyers, for parents and for motorists, Mr Speaker. And those opposite want none of this cost of living relief, none of these tax cuts to flow, Mr Speaker. And I take their interjections. And I know that the member for Lindsay has been saying that they need to rebrand their values over there, Mr Speaker. It's not a marketing problem over there, it's a meltdown, Mr Speaker. The member for Hume said that his leadership was a change or die moment, and then he made the wrong choice, Mr Speaker. He said it was a change or die moment, and then he forgot to change. And so that leaves only one option, Mr Speaker. They haven't changed a bit. They haven't learned a thing. All three of the right-wing parties over there share a divisive, anti-worker, anti-housing agenda, and that more than anything explains the mess that they're in. We're delivering cost of living relief, more cost of living relief from tomorrow, the 1st of July. We're proud to do that, and it's happening despite those opposite, not because of them.
Before I call the member for Clare, I'm pleased to inform the House and welcome in the gallery today a representative of the Cronulla RSL sub-branch, President Corey Rinaldi and board members Paul Zatt and Greg Crumlin, guests of the member for Cook. Give the call to the honourable member for Calare.
To the Infrastructure Minister. The New South Wales Government's recently announced fix for the Convict Bridge on the Great Western Highway merely replicates an 1832 one-lane each-way bottleneck and locks in a hopelessly inadequate business support package. It's all second best, while Sydney gets billions. Has the New South Wales Government approached you or the federal government for funding for either the roadworks or the support package? And will your government now stump up funding to get us some decent highway access and a support package that genuinely helps our businesses that are dying because of government negligence?
Give the call to the Minister for Infrastructure, the Minister for Transport, the Minister for Regional Development and the Minister for Local Government.
Thanks very much, and can I thank the member for Calare for his question, but also acknowledge the member for Macquarie for her advocacy. She's been in my office consistently about this on behalf of the Blue Mountains community. Of course, as the members know, the closure of the Great Western Highway has had a very substantial impact not just on businesses but families trying to get their kids to school, as well as to freight operators. I've been briefed regularly by my New South Wales counterpart, Minister Aitchkinson, and the New South Wales Government, who's managing the closure and now the delivery of works. In March, Transport for New South Wales, as you know, identified it is a really complex issue. It is a complex geotechnical failure on that 194-year-old Mitchell's Causeway. The New South Wales Government's been working to develop an engineering solution and a procurement process in parallel. That's not normally how it works, but they've been trying to expedite that as quickly as possible to work out the way forward. There's been a detailed and careful process to do that because we know we can't take shortcuts with this. On Friday, the New South Wales Minister announced a contractor has been appointed with construction to begin in July to provide residents with a clear pathway to reopening the highway next year. I understand right at the moment detailed design work is currently underway, and that includes the possibility of adding an extra lane as well, but they're working their way through that if that's possible at the moment, and they will then have a clearer picture of how much this will cost. They will work with my department on then a specific funding request, but I spoke to Minister Aitchkinson on Friday to signal my support for the Commonwealth assisting in what we know is a very significant piece of infrastructure, not just for the Blue Mountains but also the member for Calare's community as well. I'm very happy to keep the member for Calare and the member for Macquarie informed as we progress those works.
Give the call to the honourable member for Paterson.
Thanks, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Housing. How's the Albanese Labor government delivering real change for first home buyers, and why is this approach better than others for first home buyers, Minister?
Call to the Minister for Housing, the Minister for Homelessness and the Minister for Cities.
how you do it, Tim.
Thank you so much, Speaker. And could I just really thank the member for Patterson for her question. She is an absolute powerhouse in advocating for better housing opportunity for regional Australians, Speaker. More than 2,000 people in her electorate have gotten into their first home with our government's assistance, and many more to come, Speaker. Now, Mr Speaker, we've put in place first home buyer assistance because we recognise that there is no greater aspiration than owning your own home. And Labor is delivering real change to help more Australians realise that dream. Speaker, I want to tell you about Nicholas and Anthea, who have a little girl called Adeline. Like so many Australians, they were desperate to get into a home of their own. They saved for years and they just could not make the numbers stack up. Then they found out about Labor's Help to Buy shared equity scheme, and Nicholas told us that this changed everything for their family. Help to Buy allowed us to go from a small, rented, two-bedroom apartment to a well-located three-bedroom townhouse close to shops, schools and family, and made it affordable. Speaker, it's pretty simple. Our housing policies are about helping Australians build a better future for themselves and their families. And last week, Speaker, the Parliament took a critical next step towards that plan. And I want to explain to the Parliament how our approach fits together. Speaker, we've got Help to Buy, which is delivering smaller mortgages for low and middle income families. We've got that 5% deposit program that is helping Australians get to the auction years earlier. And now we've passed legislation so that when a young family gets to an auction, they're on a level playing field with other first-home buyers. Speaker, our government is firmly on the side of first-home buyers. Now, I'm asked about some of the alternatives, Speaker, and last week Australians got a really clear look at what they were. We saw the Liberals vote against first-home buyers, we saw the Nationals vote against first-home buyers, and we saw One Nation vote against first-home buyers. Speaker, the three right-wing parties teaming up to disadvantage first-home buyers at every single auction in our country. Speaker, they're opposed to the expansion of the 5% deposit program. Those opposite say it's supporting the children of billionaires. They want to scrap Help to Buy. So let's be really clear, Speaker. Under those opposite, Nicholas and Anthea would still be stuck in renting. Many of the 260,000 Australians who have bought their home through the 5% deposit program would still be stuck in renting, and the 75,000 Australian households that will go out of renting and into their own home through our tax changes would also be consigned to renting. Speaker, you can't claim to support first-home buyers and then repeatedly vote against meaningful change that's going to support them. Speaker, we've seen the evidence. Those opposite are the only man left standing defending our broken housing system. We're delivering real change for first-home buyers right across the country.
Call to the honourable member for Flinders.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Treasurer. The day after the budget, the Treasurer was asked by Peter Stefanovic if he negatively gears any properties. And the Treasurer said, quote, "I don't, Pete, no. I did maybe a decade ago," or something like that. Can the Treasurer explain to Australians why it's fair for him to benefit from negative gearing and then rip up the same opportunity for millions of aspirational Australians?
What? Order. The imputation in that question wasn't particularly within the standing orders, and reflecting on a member in such way regarding his own financial benefit is barely within the standing orders, but out of respect for the member for Flinders. Yeah. And yeah, I think we'll hear from the Leader of the House, because I'm not comfortable with the tone of the question. The subject matter is important, so I want to find a way that we can have this question answered. So, order. We'll hear from the Leader of the House.
Yeah, Mr Speaker, under page 555 of practice, it's not in order for questions to be reflecting on the private affairs of a minister. That's entirely what this question does.
Yeah. So let's just hear from the manager. We may find a way just with the rephrasing, like we did last week, with another similar in that vein of questions. But we'll find a way. The Manager of Opposition Business.
Thanks, Speaker. And you allowed last week questions to be asked to the Prime Minister and the Minister for Housing about their arrangements because they contained a contemporary hook to their portfolio responsibilities. This question is similarly constructed. I also note the ruling Speaker Smith gave about these types of questions on 15 October 2015. Questions are not permitted purely about a minister's or a Prime Minister's private affairs. There needs to be a connection with their responsibilities. I've listened very carefully, and that connection has been made on this question. Now, that's exactly what this question did, and we made sure that it did, because this is all about...
OK, we don't need to go into the analysis.
That's fine. I'm happy to go into the analysis, but I won't.
Where we intersect, and I'm aware of that ruling, but where we intersect on page 178 is discretionary powers of the chair, which can always deal with some of these topics. So I'm not happy with the imputation in the, just as I wasn't last week, but we're going to allow it. But I just remind the House that it's a bit of a dangerous slope to go down for everyone in the House if we're going to open this can of worms up. And I think it is not within the dignity of the House to go to specific financial matters of any individual member of this House. So language is important, but the manager is correct. There is a policy area that the Treasurer is responsible for. So I'm going to be very broad with allowing the Treasurer's response in light of what I've just said. The Treasurer has the call.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'd be very surprised if the Leader of the Opposition wants to go down this path, which I suspect is why nobody on the front bench asked that question, Mr Speaker. Now, just like the Leader of the Opposition, the questions from the Liberal and National parties are becoming increasingly desperate and more than a little bit pathetic, Mr Speaker, because our changes in the budget that we announced less than 2 months ago are about making the housing market fairer for everyone, Mr Speaker. They're about making sure that for the first time in a quarter of a century that first home buyers and particularly young Australians get a fair go in a housing market which has locked them out for too long. Now, Mr Speaker, we understand that those opposite, all three of the right-wing parties over there, Mr Speaker, with their divisive, anti-housing, anti-worker agenda, they would like to leave the housing market and the tax system exactly as it is, Mr Speaker. They are entirely comfortable with this idea that for a quarter of a century since Mr Howard and Mr Costello made a big policy mistake to distort the housing market and lock more young people out of the market, that is the status quo that they will go to any lengths to preserve, Mr Speaker. We have a different view about the housing market. No objective observer of the housing market in this country would say that it's working exactly as it should be, and it's especially not working for first home buyers, Mr Speaker. Now, once you come to that realisation and once you acknowledge that truth, you've got two choices. One, to do nothing about it, which is their approach for a decade, or secondly, to do something about this challenge to make it easier for first home buyers to get a toehold in a market which has been too difficult for them for too long. Now, the Leader of the Opposition has been interjecting once again about the latter, Mr Speaker. And I say once again to the Leader of the Opposition, not everybody fails upwards up the ladder like the Leader of the Opposition does. Not everybody starts their life at the top of the ladder, Mr Speaker. And there's not much point in a ladder if the first few rungs are missing, Mr Speaker. And that's the case when it comes to the housing market in this country. We are making the housing market fairer for first home buyers. We are proud to be doing that, and no amount of increasingly desperate, increasingly pathetic questions from those opposite will deter us.
Give the call to the honourable member for Lingiari.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Emergency Management. How is the Albanese Labor government supporting communities across Australia to prepare and respond to natural disasters? How does this compare, Minister, to other approaches?
Give the call to the Minister for Emergency Management, the Minister for Regional Development, the Minister for Local Government and the Minister for Territories.
Thank you so much, Mr Speaker, and I thank the member for Lingiari. She's a fierce advocate for her community, and her community has been severely impacted by floods and cyclones, and thank you for all the time you've spent with me in my office speaking about that. We know Australia is experiencing increasingly frequent, severe and complex natural disasters, and it requires a coordinated response from all levels of government. And that's why the Albanese government supports all Australian communities to prepare for and respond to disaster. In just the last high-risk weather season alone, we saw 60 severe weather events impacting more than 190 local government areas. And I saw firsthand the impacts on our communities from Harcourt in Victoria to Dolphin Sands in Tassie to Julia Creek in Queensland to Katherine in the NT. Homes and livestock lost, businesses closed and major infrastructure damaged. And tragically, we lost community members, including first responders. Mr Speaker, our government has made substantial investments in emergency management, from establishing the National Emergency Management Agency to create a single nationally coordinated—
Member for Fisher is returning to his bad habits again of continually thank you, and has taken the cue that that sort of behaviour is disrespectful to the House, particularly as a former Speaker. We're just going to have random people just saying what they want non-stop. He's had a good go this week, but everyone's got to draw a line in the sand with their behaviour. The Minister in continuation.
As I said, we've created the National Emergency Management Agency to provide a nationally coordinated agency to better prepare for, respond to and recover from disaster. We've got our $1 billion Disaster Ready Fund delivering disaster resilience and risk reduction across the country. We've created the National Emergency Management Stockpile, supporting the rollout of critical goods and services to communities quickly. We're delivering AusAlert, our new national emergency warning system that sends near-instant emergency alerts to mobile devices. And we're investing more than $100 million in national aerial firefighting capability. And I was asked how this compares to other approaches. Well, those opposite ignored warnings from fire commissioners, they delayed and paid politics with recovery sport, and now you only have to look at the comments from the Leader of the Opposition in the media today to know nothing has changed. If there was a Rhodes Scholar amongst us who had done a dissertation on bushfire management, then they might be qualified to comment on how firefighters do their job, but there isn't.
The Minister will just pause a moment. There was way too much noise. The Minister can just resume her seat for a moment. Thank you. The Manager on a point of order.
Yes, just goes to alternative approaches, Speaker. And this is a ruling of Speaker Smith's, who, as you know, like yourself, tried to be very balanced and fair on these things. Just because you're asked about alternative approaches does not mean that you can embark on a character assessment. You're going to need to actually find an alternative policy approach that you can refer to that's relevant to the question that has been asked. And I point you to that from Speaker Smith. Speaker.
The order. We'll hear from the Leader of the House.
Yeah, Mr Speaker, to the point of order, what the Minister is responding to is completely consistent with what the Manager of Opposition Business just read out. It is extraordinary that the Leader of the Opposition made the comments about firefighters that he made, but they will be responded to.
The member for Braddon is warned. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't hear because of the interjections. So I'm just going to remind the Minister she's entitled. She was asked a question about natural disasters and how does this compare to other approaches. She was reading some information about a quote or some information, so she is being directly relevant. But I remind her and all members, if we're going to talk about character, Manager of Opposition Business, that we don't bring personal matters into the parliament. As I just said in the last question at all, order, because we've just had that conversation, so the Minister needs to be directly relevant. She's entitled to state her claims that she's answering the question with, but I'll listen carefully to make sure she is following the standing orders.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. As I was pointing out, the Leader of the Opposition stood at a precipice in front of people, pointed the finger at rural firefighters, saying that they let the 2003 Snowy Mountains bushfires run. That is absolutely shameful. I am disgusted, and so are the first responders who have come into my office to complain about it. And I have a message for first responders.
Order. Everyone resume their seats immediately. Order. The member for Calwell. Just not sure what transpired there, but just going to ask everyone to reflect on their behaviours. The member for Warringah on a point of order.
It's for the member for Groom to be named for unparliamentary behaviour.
Well, I'm not. Well, I can appreciate the member for Warringah's view, but I genuinely did not see what occurred then. But if there has been an incident for the parliament, I will review footage. I will report to the House if necessary. But I'm asking everyone to rise to the challenge of representing their electorates and showing more dignity for this chamber. So I will inspect what happened, and I just ask all members to please follow my lead. Just ask the Minister to conclude.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And as I said, first responders have come into my office upset and unsure why someone in a leadership position has said that they didn't do their job. I've spent a lot of time with first responders in my own community during the Black Summer, during the Tathra fires, during the Yankees Gut fires, and my message is to those first responders: our government has your back, and the difficult decisions you have to make to keep us safe.
Order.
The Leader of the Opposition should stand up, be a man and apologise now.
Give a call to the order. Give a call to the honourable member for Monash.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Prime Minister. Last night, Sarah Ferguson asked him whether he had sought assurances from the Victorian Premier that no Commonwealth funding would end up in the hands of organised crime. The Prime Minister responded, of course. When did the Prime Minister seek these assurances, and what form did they take?
Good question.
Call to the Prime Minister.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. I like the Victorian Premier as opposed to corruption in any form. It's up to authorities, wherever there is evidence, as I said last night, for action to be taken by those authorities should there be any evidence of corrupt conduct.
Order. Members on my left. Give the call to the honourable member for Moore.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Employment and Workplace Relations. How is the Albanese Labor government improving outcomes for working Australians, and why is this effort so important? What are the risks?
Give the call to the Minister for Employment and the Minister for Workplace Relations.
Well, thank you, Speaker. I'd like to thank the member for Moore for his question, but also his years and years of advocating for working Australians, both before and while he is now in this place. Now, from day one, this Labor government has been committed to improving wages and, of course, delivering tax cuts for hard-working Australians. And from tomorrow, Aussie workers will see further cost of living relief because of this government's action. From tomorrow, the 1st of July, over 14 million Australians will get another tax cut. This is on top of the tax relief we've already delivered since coming to government. And of course, there will be more tax cuts to come under this government. Not only are we ensuring people get more of what they earn by cutting taxes, we're also focused on improving the wages of Australians. This Labor government has advocated year after year for pay increases for our lowest paid workers at the Fair Work Commission. And from tomorrow, almost 3 million workers will receive a real wage increase. Workers on awards will receive a 4.75% increase, and workers on the national minimum wage will receive a 6% increase. From tomorrow, the national minimum wage will be more than $12,000 higher per year compared to when we came to government. And for the first time ever, a full-time worker on the national minimum wage will earn over $1,000 a week. Now, not only is this Labor government backing workers on the minimum wage, but we've also made significant changes to our workplace laws to reinvigorate enterprise bargaining, and we are seeing those laws delivered with higher wages for millions of workers. Now, Speaker, I am asked about the biggest risk to our efforts to deliver for workers. And, of course, the biggest risk is those sitting opposite. When the coalition was last at the most recent election, they promised a tax increase to working Australians. Of course, when the coalition were last in government, they made low wages a deliberate design feature of their economic policy. The Liberal and National Party never once advocated for a real wage increase for our lowest paid workers. And, of course, they've always been in good company. They've been in company with One Nation, who have continually failed to back workers in this country as well. Now, despite these three right-wing parties opposite taking every opportunity to to stand in the way of pay rises and, of course, try and stop tax cuts for hard-working Australians, it is this Labor government that's getting on with the job.
Call to the Leader of the Opposition.
My question is to the Prime Minister. Can the Prime Minister confirm that no Commonwealth taxpayer funds have directly or indirectly been made into the hands of convicted criminal and underworld figure Mick Gatto or any associated companies?
Give the call to the Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This goes to the first question that I was asked after the 2022 election. And at that time, of course, I pointed out the action that I took as leader of the Australian Labor Party within 3 weeks of my election. Within 3 weeks of my election as leader of the opposition, I took on some people, such as John Setka. I expelled him from the Labor Party. He took action and took us to court. He appealed that court action and we defended that. And John Setka remains outside the Labor Party. We also have excluded the CFMEU from being affiliates of the Labor Party. We also put the CFMEU into administration. And that stands in stark contrast.
Order. The Leader of the Prime Minister concluded his answer. Give the call to the honourable member for Bass. The member for Bass has the call.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Communications. How is the Albanese Labor government continuing to lead the world when it comes to keeping kids safe from the harms of social media?
Great question. Give the call to the Minister for Communications and the Minister for Sport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member for Bass for her question and for her thoughtful and optimistic contribution that she is making to the parliament with her time here so far. Mr. Speaker, Australia's world-leading social media minimum age law sparked a global conversation that is rapidly becoming a global movement. Since our law started on 10 December, more than 5 million social media accounts belonging to under 16 have been removed, deactivated or restricted. But the impact of our social media minimum age isn't stopping there. Our goal is for tech companies to compete on the safety features of their platforms, the same way that car companies promote themselves as the safest for your family. After my meeting with the founder and CEO earlier this year, Roblox introduced children's accounts with improved safety features, and Apple will soon implement a significant uplift to parental controls, a change the CEO said was inspired by Australia's world-leading approach to children's online safety. Building on our social media minimum age, the Albanese government will introduce a digital duty of care that will require platforms to have systems in place to prevent the harm before it occurs. Harm from AI chatbots that send people down dangerous paths, or notified tools that strip people of their bodily autonomy. Harm from personalised algorithm recommender systems that maximise engagement and profit before user well-being. Systems that amplify extreme content, entrench social biases and negatively impact mental health through addiction and harmful online comparisons. Systems that send users down rabbit holes and create echo chambers that fuel division or extremism in the community. The Albanese government is proud to stand with parents, and we will not back down in our mission to keep kids safe from the harms of social media. As Wayne Holsworth, the founder of Smack Talk, said yesterday, the implementation of the social media minimum age law and the day that it was effected, December 10, 2025, is an historic day in this country's history, and I'm really proud to be an Australian. The world is watching. We will continue to lead the way. And going forward, I implore all members of parliament to support the Albanese government's amendment to the social media minimum age law so the E-Safety Commissioner can hold social media platforms to account.
The call to the honourable member for Indi.
My question is to the Minister for Health and Ageing. Murray Primary Health Network, which services most of Indi, recently had its after-hours funding cut, apparently because demand is now serviced by Medicare urgent care clinics. The government says 4 in 5 Australians live within 20 minutes of a Medicare urgent care clinic, but in Indi, if you live outside Wodonga, it's 0. Minister, can you guarantee that rural communities without a Medicare urgent care clinic will not lose access to after-hours care?
The call to the Minister for Health, the Minister for the National Disability Insurance Scheme and the Minister for Disability.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the member for her question. I think she and I have been corresponding about one particular after-hours service, Walwa Bush Nursing Centre, I think it's called, something like that, and I responded to the member, I think, last week about this. It is true that we have adjusted the funding that has traditionally been paid to primary health networks to support after-hours services across the country. Let me give a bit of a sense about why, because the member says apparently that's because of the rollout of the urgent care clinic network. That is part of the reason, but it is only part of the reason. As the member knows, given how familiar she is with the health area, there has been a bit of a transformation about the way in which people access health, particularly after hours since COVID, particularly driven by the explosion of telehealth services. Really what's happened more significantly, I think, than the urgent care clinic network rollout, particularly for communities like the members, is the rollout of 1800 Medicare, which now gives all Australians 24/7 access to a high-quality nurse, advice and triage services. And after 6 p.m, in that period of time that the after-hours service pre-telehealth was focused on, from 6 p.m. to 8 a.m, free of charge, high-quality telehealth services from a GP as well. It's true to say that the urgent care clinic network has also picked up a significant part of what used to be serviced through the after-hours program. It's true also to say that that's not covering every single regional community, as the member knows far better than I do, coming from a city electorate as I do. But I'm very convinced that the rollout of 1800 Medicare, which since January has responded to 700,000 episodes of service, plus the urgent care clinic network, plus the degree of support that our bulk billing incentive program has given to communities like the members, which has seen bulk billing practices triple since just November last year, that we are delivering a much stronger Medicare service. Now, I think, as I said in my response to the member's letter about that particular after-hours service, the PHN, the Primary Health Network, has provided some funding through the 26-27 financial year to that service. They have, on my advice, been experiencing quite low service volumes. That around the country is seen as a reflection of these new services like 1800 Medicare and urgent care clinic networks. So the funding that they will receive over the 26-27 financial year will reflect the quite significant reduction I understand this service has seen in their after-hours volumes.
Give the call to the honourable member for Werriwa.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Aged Care and Seniors. What progress has been made by the Albanese Labor government to repair and rebuild our aged care workforce? Why was it necessary after a decade of neglect?
Call to the Minister for Aged Care and the Minister for Seniors.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and thank you to the member for Werriwa. I know many colleagues on this side of the chamber share my great admiration for her and the fearless way that she fights for the people of south-western Sydney. Mr Speaker, when we came to government, we found an aged care sector on its knees after a decade of neglect, a workforce stretched beyond its capacity to deliver care to our loved ones, and wages that didn't reflect the value of the skilled and challenging work that they do. Now, on this side of the House, we know that better care for workers means better care for older Australians. We came to government with a commitment to rebuild aged care. Keeping skilled workers in the sector has been central to this promise, and it's why we've invested almost $18 billion to increase aged care worker wages. And this morning, I had the pleasure of joining the Treasurer, the Minister for Social Services and the Member for Bean to celebrate yet another wage rise for workers around the country, including our aged care workers. Tomorrow's increase means an extra $85 per week in the pocket of a registered nurse on the award, $67 per week for enrolled nurses and $59 per week for personal care workers. Mr Speaker, that's around $3,000 to $4,000 a year, depending on your role. It's food on the table, it's rent or the mortgage paid, it's a family holiday with the kids. And it comes on top of our previous increase to aged care wages, which already have the average registered nurse in aged care more than $28,000 a year better off under this Albanese Labor government. It's tens of thousands more than what workers were receiving in the 9 miserable years under those opposite. After just 4 years, our work to boost wages for those in aged care is helping us keep the dedicated people who do the work in this sector in the sector for even longer. And all of this comes on top of our focus on delivering real change for every working Australian. 5 tax cuts, cheaper health care, more homes and more home owners. We're delivering more cost of living help and building a more productive economy, a better tax system, a fairer housing market and a stronger and more sustainable budget. And today isn't the last of our work delivering better wages for workers in the sector, with another increase for nurses to be delivered in just a month on the 1st of August. Now, if there's one thing that we learned from the Liberals' time in office, it's you can't have a strong aged care system without a strong and supported aged care workforce. Our aged care system is better when workers are properly supported at work and at home.
Members on my left.
To every single aged care worker across Australia, thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for the dignity and the compassion that you bring. Thank you for working around the clock. You're the best of us and you deserve every dollar that these wage increases deliver.
The call to the member for Cowper.
My question is to the Prime Minister. What assurances was the Prime Minister given by the Victorian Premier on whether Commonwealth taxpayer funds directly or indirectly made it into the hands of convicted criminal and underworld figure Mick Gatto or any of his associated companies?
Call to the Prime Minister.
Thanks, Mr Speaker. I will take up that question from where I was speaking before I was rudely interrupted. and I'll make 3 points.
The member for Cook.
3 points. One, I confirm the actions that this government has taken. 2, I'll make the point that stands in stark contrast to the former government that had a royal commission into unions, but it was about having a crack at the then Leader of the Opposition, using Commonwealth funds to have a crack at the then member for Maribyrnong and have a go at the former Prime Minister of Australia, Julia Gillard. With millions of dollars spent which during that same period John Setka increased his influence in the CFMEU and expanded it from Victoria into South Australia and into Tasmania. I'll make two further points. In 2024, the Commonwealth put specific provisions in funding agreements with states and territories that place obligations on jurisdictions to report any allegations of unacceptable behaviour. That was something that wasn't there under the former government. And further than that, Victoria continues to keep the Commonwealth informed of the work that they've done to strengthen the integrity processes. Those measures include requirements within tenders to develop a management plan for fraud. It can't be more relevant. Oh, well.
Order. Order. The member for order. The Prime Minister was asked a specific question. He's reading about Commonwealth assurances he was asked about. There cannot possibly be a point of order, Member for Cowper. If he was asking about other topics, he specifically referenced 2024. Resume your seat. Resume your seat. He was asked what assurance he was given. He was reading about. Resume your seat. There's been far too much disrespect in this chamber today. Prime Minister in continuation.
Mr. Speaker, and these are the measures that the Victorian government have put in place, which include requirements within tenders to develop a management plan for fraud and integrity matters. 2. Broaden conflict of interest in gifts and hospitality requirements. 3. A requirement for contractors to install robust security access arrangements at sites. 4. Minimum requirements for timesheet systems. 5. Requirements for contractors to provide a register of subcontractors and suppliers engaged on a relevant project. And 6. The establishment of a mandatory register of approved industrial relations consultants and mediators. That is the measures that have been put in place. The measures that have been put in place by this minister are substantive as well, measures that were not in place under the former government.
Give a call to the honourable member for Blair.
Speaker, my question is to the Minister for Education. What is the Albanese Labor government doing to make sure early educators are paid fairly while strengthening the safety and affordability of early education?
Give a call to the Minister for Education.
Well, thanks very much, Mr. Speaker. Can I thank my friend, the big-hearted member for Blair, for his question? Mr. Speaker, as he knows, tomorrow every Australian worker will get a tax cut and 3 million Australians will get a pay rise, and that includes hundreds of thousands of childcare workers right across the country. As I told the House last week when we were first elected, childcare workers were leaving the job in droves, not because they didn't love the job, but because you could earn more money stacking shelves and educating our kids. And that has now changed. It's changed because of the 15% pay rise that we've delivered. As a result of that, there are now 20,000 more childcare workers working right across the country. Turns out if you pay people more people want to do the job. And that's why what we announced a couple of weeks ago, locking that in, is so important. It's good for the workers because they get paid more, but it's also good for parents because for the centres to get the money, they've also got to cap their fees. And for the average family for a child in childcare, that'll save them about $1,500 over the next 2 years. So good for workers, good for parents, but it's also good for our kids because we've added a new condition. To get the funding, the centre also has to meet the National Safety Standard. And this builds on the work that we've been doing over the last 12 months. The banning of personal mobile phones in centres, the CCTV trial, the mandatory safety training. And I can tell the House that now 99% of workers have done that national mandatory safety training. That's the first phase. The next stage of that training will start to roll out next month. And those reforms also include the legislation that we passed through this parliament last year that mean if you don't meet the standards, then you can have your funding cut. and that wasn't an idle threat. I can tell the House that we've now issued notices against 115 centres. 47 centres have now suddenly fixed the problems they'd refused to fix for more than 5 years. 7 centres have voluntarily relinquished their licences. And I can inform the House that today my department has cut funding to a service in Victoria that has been warned and continued not to meet the standard. Mr Speaker, this is not the end. This is just the start. The truth is that this work will never end and will continue to take the steps we need to take to keep our kids safe.
Call to the member for Mayo.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Health. Young Australians are being diagnosed with early-onset bowel cancer at the highest known rate in the world. Many report their GPs are reluctant to screen because of their young age, which is leading to advanced cancers being diagnosed. How can the government better raise awareness among young people about early-onset bowel cancer, and what supports can be provided to GPs to encourage earlier access of screening?
If we call to the Minister for Health and Ageing, the Minister for Disability and the National Disability Insurance Scheme.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the member for Mayo. I think members right across the chamber and senators as well met with younger Australians from their own electorates coming to this building last week to talk about this extraordinary, terrible trend that we're living through now with, as the member said, the largest increase in younger onset bowel cancer we can find anywhere in the world. It's not the only cancer type where we're seeing big rates of increase in younger diagnoses. There are a number of others. Head and neck is one, a number of others as well. But colorectal or bowel cancer really does stand out. We've provided funding and advice, or requested advice from Cancer Australia to start a research program particularly focused on this question. We did that a year or two ago. I can't quite remember when, but one of the clinician researchers that is leading some of that research was part of the delegation last week. I'm not sure whether the member for Mayo managed to talk to him. I think people like that, extraordinarily smart, experienced people, are pretty honest that we just don't know what is driving this big increase in diagnosis rates among younger Australians. And I'm not talking the 45 to 50-year-old cohort, which has been the subject of NHMRC investigation about whether we should move the bowel cancer screening age from 50 down to 45. I'm talking about, the member is talking about people in their 20s and in their 30s. There are a range of hypotheses. Some of those are being tested and probed by the research that we've funded through Cancer Australia, and this research is happening in cooperation with clinician researchers right across the world. We talked to that group, and I talked to others involved in bowel cancer about ways in which we can lift the awareness of general practitioners, not to simply discount reports from their patients about symptoms that should be investigated, not simply put them down to something unrelated to bowel cancer. And I know that those groups and government is talking to the College of GPs about materials and resources we can give to their members, their GP members, who, as the member knows, really are the front line when young Australians in their 20s and 30s and 40s are going to their GP asking questions about these symptoms that they're having. So that terrific campaign group that came to see us last week, that came to see us at the same time last year, is doing everything they can to raise awareness among young Australians, not to look past some symptoms that simply are not normal. But we need to do more. We need to understand what is driving this big increase in diagnosis, and we need to help lift the awareness among GPs about this issue and for them to know what to do about it.
Give the call to the member for Dixon.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Social Services. How is the Albanese Labor government delivering on its commitment to strengthen paid parental leave? And how is it supporting families and women in the workforce? What are the risks to this?
Call to the Minister for Social Services.
Well, thanks so much, Mr Speaker, and I want to thank the member for Dixon for her terrific question. I know when she's out door knocking, which she does a lot of. A lot of the families that have received paid parental leave in her electorate raised this with her. 1,700 parents in her electorate just last year received paid parental leave. This morning, as the Treasurer and the Minister for Aged Care said, we were out at Uniting Care Miranjani, a fantastic facility, with Sharon and her team, there with the member for Bean as well. And Sharon, of course, heads a workplace that is mostly female, taking care of older Australians when they need it most. From tomorrow, this fantastic group of staff will receive a range of terrific benefits, including higher wages, including tax cuts, including payday super, and of course they'll see increases in their family tax benefit tomorrow as well if they've got kids, and if they have a baby from tomorrow onwards, they'll of course receive the full 6 months of paid parental leave, more time at home. They'll receive more money, over $1,000 a week now. More people will be eligible. The scheme is more flexible. So thanks to our changes since coming to government, the Albanese Labor government has more than doubled the entitlement for paid parental leave. It's around $30,000 now. And we know that that is particularly important in female-dominated industries like aged care, where we've also seen the benefits of our changes to industrial relations, which has meant that we've got the lowest gender pay gap in history as well, because of the changes this government has made. In industries like aged care, you also see a lot of casual workers and a lot of part-time workers who are women. They, of course, also benefit from paid parental leave as long as they meet the work test, and that's very important to know. But, of course, we know that those opposite have been completely all over the place on that. The Shadow Treasurer disappears every time I talk about paid parental leave. He's gone again. He's gone again. And of course, One Nation's only 50% here. We've got one of them, but not the other one. What happens when the Liberals and One Nation gang up on paid parental leave when they both have such odd? They support it. Well, the Shadow Treasurer doesn't. The Shadow Treasurer doesn't. And, you know, One Nation, since 2017, the leader of One Nation has been saying that women get themselves pregnant for the money. The idea of One Nation and the Liberals ganging up on this, it's a disaster.
Has concluded. Give the call to the Leader of the Nationals in the House of Representatives.
Thank you, Speaker. And my question is to the Minister for Aged Care and Seniors. Since coming to government in 2022, how many older Australians have died while waiting for their home care package?
Call to the Minister for Aged Care and the Minister for Seniors.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I thank the member for his question. It stands to reason, certainly any reasonable person's judgment, that no one in this place wants any older Australian to pass away waiting for the care that they deserve. Now, the Royal Commission into aged care quality and safety examined exactly this. Now, at the peak of the aged care crisis, which was around 2018, more than 16,000 older Australians were dying on the waiting list each year, approved for what was then a home care package, but passing away before they ever received it. And it's why the Commission recommended that the aged care system should be better at supporting Australians to age in place and to receive those services quickly to keep them healthier at home for longer. This Parliament acted on those recommendations together on a bipartisan basis through the new Aged Care Act and the Support at Home program that began on the 1st of November. And that number today is still too high, but the number of people dying while waiting for care has significantly reduced. And the way we're bringing those tragic deaths down further is by investing to cut wait times for support at home services. The latest data shows that standard priority cases are now waiting on average 3 months less. Medium priority cases are waiting around 2 months less. High-priority wait times are now just 1 to 2 months, and as always, those assessed as urgent priority are always allocated their full funding within a month. Our investment of $47 billion in the aged care system next year, including an extra 32,000 new support-at-home places on top of the 83,000 that we finished delivering today, will continue our work to drive these wait times down. Mr Speaker, there's much more work to do to ensure that the system moves faster and is more responsive to older people's needs. Our job is to get those wait times down further and get care to people faster, no matter where they live. The number is the same as it has been for some time. It's been reported publicly, and I have given it in this House, and it is distressingly that last financial year, 4,812 Australians were on that list. We have made significant progress, but for all of those people and the older people to come, we'll continue that work to deliver on the promise of the Royal Commission and provide the safe, dignified care that every older Australian deserves.
Call to the honourable member for Robertson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And my question is to the Minister for Health. How are Medicare urgent care clinics helping Australians around the country see a doctor when they need it? And why is it so important to strengthen Medicare after a decade of cuts and neglect?
Call to the Minister for Health and Ageing, the Minister for Disability and the National Disability Insurance Scheme.
Yeah, thank you, Speaker, and thank you to the member for Robertson, who is affectionately known as Dr Gordon in his electorate, where he still pulls shifts as an emergency physician at the Wyong Hospital. And through that work and his other work as a doctor, he is a terrific source of advice to us about our program to strengthen Medicare, and I'm glad to say he's seeing the results in his own electorate, Mr Speaker. Our record investment in bulk billing in just November last year has already seen the bulk billing rate climb by more than 10% for people who don't have that concession card, more than 10% in just 5 months, Mr Speaker. And around the same time, we opened the urgent care clinic at Erina, and that has already seen around 9,000 patients, Mr Speaker. And from tomorrow, the Erina Urgent Care Clinic will become a permanent feature of our healthcare system, along with the other 136 clinics that we have delivered. As I said recently, Mr Speaker, last week we opened the last of the 137 clinics we committed to delivering before 30th June. It was in Caloundra in the electorate of Fisher, Mr Speaker, and just like the urgent care clinic at Erina, the Liberal Party refused to match our commitment to the urgent care clinic at Caloundra in the member for Fisher's electorate. And I say to the member for Fisher in his absence, Mr Speaker, that at least we had his back. At least we had his back on the Sunshine Coast, Mr Speaker, and more than 3.2 million Australians now have gone through these new clinics. They're staffed by high-quality doctors and nurses, they're open 7 days a week, and they're fully bulk billed, Mr Speaker. And that confidence to try something new, Mr Speaker, comes from knowing that these clinics are backed by Medicare, that cornerstone of the world's best health system. They're not just urgent care clinics, Mr Speaker, they're Medicare urgent care clinics. Now, there's been a bit of chatter recently about older brands getting a bit stale, chatter that happened again this morning for some reason. Now, older brands needing a bit of glitter, a bit of pizzazz, Mr Speaker. Well, I can tell you the Medicare brand needs no pizzazz. It doesn't need any glitter, because it hasn't changed in 40 years, Mr Speaker. People still get the same Medicare cards that Bob Hawke was posting out to people in 1984, and people still trust that brand more than ever before because it delivers for them. It delivers real change in their lives. It builds a healthy Australia, and that, Mr Speaker, is how you build a strong brand.
Call to the honourable member for Mayo.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Veterans Services. Shane is 64 and served in the Australian Army for 21 years, and he lives with multiple injuries. Shane will hit the proposed $5,000 limit for Veterans Allied Health Services in less than 4 months. Many veterans have said to me they will need to choose between physical and psychological health support or be re-traumatised trying to seek extra support above the cap. Will the government do the right thing by veterans and raise or reverse the proposed cap?
Call to the Minister for Veterans Affairs and the Minister for Defence Personnel.
Thank you, Speaker, and I thank the member for the question, because it's important to be able to provide the House with the full suite of information about the package that was announced on budget night. At the moment, we know many veterans that are having difficulty accessing allied health services because historically DVA has not paid those allied health professionals enough. And so we announced that we'll make the biggest increase in 20 years to those fees. As part of that, we're also scrapping the treatment cycle. That meant that veterans would have to go back to a GP for a new referral every 12 sessions with an allied health professional, which was, of course, adding to the administrative burden and the complexity for those veterans, as well as for GPs. We're replacing that with the $5,000 allocation, as you mentioned. But importantly, our commitment is that for any veteran that has a clinical need to go over that amount, they will be able to access additional allied health services. Now, to put that $5,000 in context, the median use of allied health services by a veteran is $1,900. Around 1 in 10 veterans may go above that $5,000 amount. And we've committed, as you would expect, us to work with the veteran community in consulting with them about the best method for obtaining those approvals where they may need more. Because we understand that some veterans have very complex needs, and for different allied health services, that may work in different ways, recognising the diversity of allied health users. So we'll work with the veterans and with the allied health service professionals around a system to make sure there's a good approval system with no gap in delivery of service to a veteran that has a clinical need to receive it. And I say to those that are heckling opposite, it would be helpful if they would engage in constructive conversation around this, instead of trying to create fear in the veteran community, as we engage with the veteran community to make sure this system works well for them with better access to allied health care going forward. Thank you.
Give the call to the honourable member for Richmond.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy. What policies are helping to lower the cost of fuel and energy to households, and what policies would see Australians paying more?
Call to the Minister for Climate Change and Energy.
I'm very grateful, Mr Speaker, for the call and for the question from my honourable friend, and what a wonderful job she does representing the people of northern New South Wales in this House, Mr Speaker. And I'm asked what policies we have to help people with the costs of fuel and energy, and of course we have several. And of course we have the cheap home battery policy, Mr Speaker, which turns tomorrow 1 year old, Mr Speaker. Introduced on the 1st of July last year, and I'm pleased to tell the House that 456,320 Australian households have introduced cheaper home batteries, and that equates now to 13 gigawatt-hours of storage. Now, the House might ask, what's 13 gigawatt-hours? Well, some honourable members might remember the Hornsdale battery, which was at the time the biggest battery in the world. We thought it was a great national achievement at the time. Mr Speaker, Australian households have now installed 100 times the capacity of the Hornsdale battery just in the last year alone. And this is Australians, Mr Speaker, reducing their bills in many cases to zero, but also putting downward pressure on bills for everyone, because they are storing that cheap renewable energy for the middle of the day and using it at night, which means we are using less of the more expensive energy. Now, Mr Speaker, what we are seeing is Australians in the suburbs and the regions taking up this policy with great enthusiasm. I told the House last week that there are 4 electorates that have more than 10% of the households with cheap home batteries: Greenway, Mitchell, Mayo and Wright, Mr Speaker. People who are taking up that cheaper home battery policy with great enthusiasm. But I can tell the House, since last week, there has been a development. There is now another electorate which has more than 10% of the houses in that community that have put in cheaper home batteries. What inner-city woke electorate is it, Mr Speaker? I can feel the House asking. Mr Speaker. Would it be a member who supports the cheaper home battery policy or one who opposes it? Well, The electorate in question is the electorate of Hume, Mr Speaker, where more than 10% of the good people of Hume have now put in a cheaper home battery policy, Mr Speaker. Now, is the local member pleased with this development? Has he said, fantastic, well done Hume, Mr Speaker? Or is he against the policy? Well, I'm sorry to tell the House he has called for the abolition of the cheaper home battery policy. He doesn't want the 5,405 households in Hume to be able to reduce their bills to nothing. He doesn't want them helping reducing bills for everyone. When the members opposite have a chance to help Australians reduce their fuel bill or reduce their energy bill, they say no. They're against cheaper home batteries. They're against the EV tax cut. They're against the new vehicle efficiency standards. They're against any policy which helps Australians reduce their bills, Mr Speaker, because of their prejudice and their anti-climate action. They don't want to stand with the people of the suburbs and regions of Australia and the people of Hume. Well, we do.
To the Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I ask that further questions be placed on the notice paper.
Before members leave, and I will